I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Hey folks, welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. That's the Indaba Africa Conversation with none other than an old friend of the channel. Dare we say that? Old friend of the channel, no doubt. A couple years ago, somebody said, you got to talk to this guy, Neil De Beer. I'm like, is that the guy that the ANC hates and that the Afrikaners hate? Yeah, I know who that is. That's Neil De Beer. So we got Neil on the program. He's happy to come on the program. Then he got his UIM launched, United Independent Movement, and wound up on the Cape Town Council, and then launched a national campaign for the elections and just missed getting representation in Parliament, unfortunately, for his party. But I was there at the launch at Tygerberg, when he launched his campaign, the first political party to compete for last year's elections, did the previous year in 2023. Neil's back with us, and Neil's got some stuff to talk about here. Neil, so I've coined a new phrase. It's no slight meant by it, but people are PNG'd and things. They get made redundant by their employer. I tell them they've been Rasooled. I see that you're undergoing your treatments. I think your hair has been Rasooled. Has your hair been Rasooled this week?
Yeah, one of the definitive things about cancer, but I must tell you, I've received compliments that I don't look that bad bald.
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, I gave you one of those compliments about 3 minutes ago.
You did.
I said he's not such a bad-looking guy when he's bald, because I've been bald. It's not pretty, folks. You don't want to see me bald. But I say, it was better looking with the hair, but he's still a good-looking dude.
I'll take it. Take it, Chris.
You take the small victories, right?
We need it.
All right, Neil, let's see. It's been a couple weeks since we talked, and gosh, nothing has been going on. I don't know. But yeah, a lot's been going on, my goodness, including the expulsion of South Africa's ambassador in what many are calling an unprecedented radical step, but it's not. Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool overstepped the bounds of diplomacy by a wide margin. He did it intentionally. He knew what he was doing, and it's beyond the pale. I'm not sure what your thoughts on that are, and it has not helped the situation. When he was appointed the ambassador last November and then went to present his credentials a week before the previous administration left, that was highly unusual, and that was kind of irritating for the diplomatic community here in D.C. But when he was nominated, my question was like, are you seriously going to send Ibrahim Rasool? If you want to make relations worse with the United States, the only way you can make it worse is to send Naledi Pandor.
Yeah, Chris, a lot of things happening. I think you've seen that I've been on the media quite a lot. I am frequently on the Biz News show that has now cracked 250,000 viewers a week. We were at the Biz News conference, great success, last week in Hermanus, where the top 600 business leaders, people like Adrian Gore and unfortunately Paul Mashatile, came to speak. The opening conference was Helen Zille, powerful address. But I have been stepping up on my presence, and plain and simply, Chris, you are very right. We are not getting it right. We are absolutely fumbling the ball, and there's no pickup to score that goal. It is as if we are at a two-way street, and it's not just the United States of America. No. That is currently a thorn in the side. It seems that South Africa has become the pariah of the world's focus, and even our own BRICS partners are slamping into Donald and getting accolades, and we are being left out. And yeah, the situation has now reached, as far as I'm concerned, the crescendo, the proverbial cherry on the cake, where our ambassador is not just asked to be expelled out of that country, but the words used by Mr. Rubio is persona non grata. Now, that is worse than being told this is a diplomatic spat. You've got to leave. We've got differences. No, sir. Marcus Rubio used the words persona non grata. Now, you don't get, as far as I'm concerned, stronger sentence to say you're not welcome and you moet voetsek.
Well, Neil, there's an acronym that's been floating around, and in less polite terms, we know what that means, but we've started calling it Friends and Family Only, FAFO. That's what's really going on here.
Yeah. Chris, I will tell you, you know my past. You know where I come from. I have had 32 years of this government. I have grown a bit wiser. I have grown a little bit older, and I am not falling for BS at all anymore. We've made mistakes. Both sides. I have made calculated mistakes on many issues in my past. But here's my statement on this matter, and we'll get into depth where we're going. I am a South African, Chris. I might have different political views, but there's one thing: I am an Afrikaner. I am a Boer. They can say what they bloody want. They can reject me. But many have decided that because I know the enemy, and because I have a fundamental difference now with this state and this ANC, that I am a key to people to understand where we are, and righteously so. But here's the thing. I am not going to be a refugee, a fugitive, or a person unwelcomed in my own country where I was born. That will never happen. It's not going to happen. And we should not be sitting here formulating plans to leave this country. I am sorry. So we either stand and we fight this in court, we fight this on legal terminology, but we are not going to surrender as people that were born. And now we've got a problem. We have a full-on, may I say, economic, diplomatic war with the most powerful economy on earth. And we are not, at this current moment in time, giving any relief on the 5 questions, Chris. And you know it, we addressed it, it's not moved. In actual fact, 5 days before this man gets expelled, they sat in a meeting with the people representing Iran in our country. What more do you want? So you are very right. We are not rising to the occasion. And may I say, in God's hands we must be. Who are we going to send now?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I see they want to send Nell, who's just kind of a wishy-washy white South African Afrikaner who's an ANC member. That's not really going to move the needle. Look, I'm not a fan or a opponent, but an adult in the room might be somebody like Tony Leon. I'm not calling for that, but I mean, who are you going to send? I know you offered, Cyril, you'd be happy to do it. I think that'd be a good choice. But yeah, I mean, why not? Out of the box, they should think. But listen, Neil, it's not just meeting with Iran, but she went on Twitter and announced on Twitter. I mean, look, South Africa's a sovereign state. If the ANC and the GU want to meet with Iran or Russia, that's their prerogative. But you don't throw it in the face of the Americans when Trump has been very restrained, very patient. He gets lied about. I heard Malema's comments, and even the Deputy Minister for Transport, I think it was, who's from the IFP, very disappointed in the Inkatha Freedom Party, attacking Donald Trump. All that Trump has done is he issued one Truth Social tweet saying bad things are happening in South Africa. Then he issued an executive order in which we said we're suspending aid to South Africa. But we'd already announced we're suspending aid to the entire world. So this was not exactly news. But South Africa decided to take that and turn it about, he's cutting aid. He was cutting aid off the entire world, not just to South Africa. And they had to make it about themselves. So Trump made it about them and canceled it permanently. And then he offered this refugee program, both of which are disruptive to South Africa, but both of which are sovereign decisions that affect the United States. Whom we let in this country, refugees, and whom we give money to is our issue, not someone else's issue. And when South African politicians start whining about it and calling us racist and calling our president a wackadoodle because he's trying to hurt South Africa, he's pressuring this nonsense. They whine about their sovereignty while trying to impinge on our sovereignty. It's beyond belief. Then South African government joins 83 countries in the midst of all this after Ramaphosa says, at the State of the Nation address, we will not be bullied. Well, gee, why don't you focus on South Africa? It's the State of the Nation, not your international relations address. And then they join 83 countries in criticizing Trump and whining about him sanctioning the ICC. We're not even a member of the ICC, so get over yourself. But it just gets one thing after another. Then they do this thing with Iran and they publicize it. She should have had her meeting with the Iranian diplomats, and that should have been the end of it. It should have been publicly talked about. Do it in private. That's what diplomacy is all about. Look, I'm really getting frustrated with these South African politicians, and I'm coming to one conclusion, Neil. There are people in your government, and I made this conclusion 5 weeks ago, that want to be the victim. They want sanctions. Or they're stupid as a box of rocks, or maybe it's both. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me.
Chris, I have lived through times of war. I have lived through times of conflict. I have lived through times of sincere evil, hatred, racism in my lifetime. I am one of the generations, by the way you are as well, that has seen a dramatic time in our lifetime. We have seen in our lifetime, Chris, the fall of the Berlin Wall. We have seen communism in Russia collapse. We have seen huge and major shifts in the economies of scale. But there's one thing that we all, at the end of the day, Chris, may I call ourselves military men, people of decorum. No matter what side you fight, you're a soldier. There comes a time, Chris, where soldiers, even soldiers that were enemies, will breach that gap, shake their hand, and actually declare peace amongst each other. Now remember, that's war. When we sit in our country at this current moment in time, I would like to do the following, if I may. Remove the name Donald Trump. Remove the name Marcus Rubio. Remove the name of the US conglomerate and take the personalities out of this so that we can focus on the real issue. What is the real issue? The United States of America will continue to be who they are, no matter pre, post, or present leadership. That's a fact. But the leadership of that United States of America, now I'm going into something I don't know, but I will give my opinion, democratically, en masse, elected Donald J. Trump as the president. This is a fact. He is the president of the United States, and therefore, he has the right as a sovereign nation to actually deal with who the hell he wants to and who he decides to do on what terms, Chris. So that's a fact. We are not in the same boat, I'm sorry. South Africa does not have the same current authority, the same sovereignty, in my opinion, as the United States of America. Why do I say that? We have a political party who got 40% of the vote that had 66.7 in 1994, sir. We have a Democratic Alliance that's got merely 23%. We don't have a sovereign, declared unanimous vote of one party. So, my opinion at this moment is, the ANC is continuing to go on in the GNU and make as if they got 51%, and the hell with that. That is not so. The country, Chris, listen to me. Now I will tell you, the black people in this country voted the ANC out because it could not just be white South Africans that voted them out.
No, it's impossible.
It is therefore, no, this is a fact. Because if they went down to 40, you have to add people that moved either to MK, they moved to EFF, they moved to the DA, but they definitely didn't go to the ANC. So let us make up our mind. You cannot have a 40% partner in a GNU that currently still dictates foreign policy and says they will talk to Iran, they will support Hamas and Hezbollah, they will support a BRICS currency, and by the way, just to make it a little bit more pissed off for everybody, I'll take Israel to court. That's it. Now, what do? Do we continue this unwinnable economic and trade war with the biggest power that carries the dollar in this world? Or do we sit down and say, no longer are we going to talk about the past affiliations, Chris? We are past that loyalty of Cuba. We are past the loyalty of China. We have passed Iran. We have already paid our debt as far as I'm concerned. Now we need to talk economics and not politics. And if we don't, let me tell you, America's only going to do one thing, Chris, and this is this.
Yep, and we have a lot of levers here, and not one of which has been turned. You know, South Africa is currently in the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act illegally. U.S. public law requires the participants in the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act to respect private property rights. The passing of the Expropriation Without Compensation Act has abrogated that, and South Africa is in violation of AGOA. Now, the whining is going to come from the left. Well, we're a sovereign nation. You are, but actions have consequences, and by law, you're not allowed to get duty-free access to America. And Trump should have removed you from it already. On January 23rd, you should have been removed, but he hasn't done it. And instead of taking the win and going, wait a second, well, we're out of bounds here. We got a yellow card, but Trump isn't giving us a red card. You know, it's very annoying because, this whole thing, I was recently rubbished on one of the media outlets in South Africa, people lying about what I said. And then we got this black supremacist who stole my content and altered my video and zoomed into my face, trying to talk about, the U.S. government's threatening. And I said, no. In the video, I said, there are no sanctions. I mean, have you been gray listed by the U.S.? You are by the Financial Task Force, but that's not the U.S. But that's because of terrorism financing and because of money laundering, which we've known about for years, and it finally happened. But you're not gray listed by the U.S. You have not been kicked out of SWIFT, which would be disastrous for South Africa. There are no tariffs placed. I mean, look, no tariffs. We're putting tariffs on Canada, our neighbor. Because they're cheating us in many things. We've put no tariffs on South Africa. We get no reciprocity from AGOA. You've not been kicked out of AGOA, which you're legally in. We have not sanctioned any leaders from South Africa. We have not embargoed trade. We have not banned Americans from doing business in South Africa. We've not banned America. So stop the whining about sanctions. It's just ridiculous nonsense that doesn't exist. There are no sanctions. But if you keep it up, they're coming. Trump's got bigger fish to fry. He's got Gaza, he's got Ukraine, he's got Doge, he's got Myanmar, he's got the Chinese, he's got all this stuff. And all you're doing is bringing attention to yourself. And I think the perfect example of this was when Trump was caught a couple of days ago, and this is all set up, the reporter, not by Trump, but by the reporter. These are conservative reporters trying to get some action. Mr. President, did you know that Hunter Biden is in Cape Town with 18 Secret Service agents? And he goes, no, I didn't know that. Where's he at? In South Africa? And then Trump says, well, South Africa's on a watch list. A watch list? Oh, nobody was talking about South Africa. And by the way, this is the part that's so frustrating for me, Neil. Everyone says Elon Musk, and then Trump. No. February 6, 2024, bipartisan members of the House of Representatives introduced a resolution to relook at the relationship with South Africa with a view towards removing you from AGOA last year and also to reduce our interaction with South Africa because it was working against our national interest over several years. Democrats and Republicans. The only reason that didn't become a law is because the Democrats controlled the Senate and the president was Biden, so it never got anywhere. This is not Donald Trump. This predates it. The difference here is we have a man who will take action now. And for years, people can get away with crap, and now those chickens are coming home to roost.
Churchill said, less war, more jaw.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go back to the fundamentals. If you're a diplomat, you practice diplomacy. If you practice diplomacy, you practice decorum. You cannot sit in any position when you are a state employee, when you are a governmental representative and speak your opinion. You waiver that right when you become an ambassador of 60 million citizens in the Republic of South Africa. You're not there as Ambassador Peter. You are there as bloody ambassador for the people of this republic. Now, the attitude, the kind of person that you need to put in probably one of the most hostile, vibrant, and current unstable relationship is definitely not a person like Ibrahim Rasool. I'm sorry, you can now say what you want, but religiously, racially, physically, and opinionally, he was the wrong guy. Now, here's the question. You either dumb, ignorant, naive, or you are, as we say in Afrikaans, you are aspris. Aspris means you are now being on purpose. You are being vindictive. Now, sorry, Chris, that's where this ball ends. It's either this one, it's either that one, or it's a bloody combination of both. We went in there, and now, what a blatant slap in the face. An acknowledgement by this country to now replace Ibrahim with a white guy. This is blatant. This is blatant.
Yeah, I didn't even make that connection. To be honest, I hadn't even thought about the fact he's a white guy. I did mention Afrikaner, but but honestly, I didn't think black and white. I mean, till you just mentioned that. But
Sir. This is blatant. So what are you saying? Oh, damn! I made that stuff up here. We sent the wrong dude. Now we're gonna send this dude. He's an ANC, but at least he's one. You are now the formulation of racist. As if Donald Trump's gonna go, damn. you're suitable. No, sir. No. It's still the same.
You're so right. I look, I'm working 15, 18 hours a day, killing myself here with no rest, the consulting, the channel, all the stuff going on. And I hadn't even made it, honestly, Neil, I hadn't even thought about the guy's white. I did say Zafar Connor, but I remember I said he's kind of a wishy-washy guy. He hasn't really done anything. He's been a deputy minister a couple times.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, I didn't even make the connection. He's white. And you're right. The ANC is going to probably pick him because they think that's what Trump wants, and we have to because they think in terms of color instead of thinking in terms of competency. Send somebody who's competent. Don't send Ronnie Lamola. But
Chris, when I saw this announcement, when I saw this on Twitter, I said to myself, another own goal.
Yeah, it is.
Another own goal. Because it's not about race, Chris. It's not about Muslim, Christian. It is not about Palestine and Israel. It is about, and I'm sorry, I am sitting in the Republic of South Africa. I'm a South African. I'm talking here on the people of South Africa's future. And if we are going to fight this on historic background, on the matter of race, color, creed, and also religion, we've lost the battle. Because you are representing a country, that has got vibrant problems of its own. But there's one color that you know, and that is the color of a crisp US dollar. And at this current moment, I am telling you now, Chris, this country has run out of money. It's run out of fiscal restitution. It is trying to find, if the budget didn't pass, it's not going to pass. They are going to have to now go to the formula where line item by line item, they are going to have votes in parliament because the DA, and I'll tell you that, correctly so, as the main partner with the ANC and the GNU, reflected and said, nay, we are not going to do it. So that is the battle line, in my opinion, that's being drawn. It's an economic farce. And currently, if we don't get this done, the sanctions are coming. The sanctions will come. Because I'm telling you now, it's going to, and you said it so well. Chris, who are we? I've tried to find out, what is this thing about SA making us so important when Mozambique is in collapse and civil war, when Zimbabwe is still not crawling out of its dungeon, when Angola just keeps on pumping out and does what it wants, the DRC in a civil battle. There's a southern continent that is currently crumbling in either looting, war, or deceit. And the US is not talking to them. The US isn't slapping Mozambique. It's not ripping up Angola. It's not telling why. That's interesting to me. So what makes South Africa, Chris, such a thorn in the side of the United States? And I found out why. We are the only damn fooled government on the southern side of this continent that went and did what we did. And what did we do? We thought we main players on the continental show. So go charge Israel. So go defame these people. Send the Ladi Pandor and tell her to have meetings and discussions with people that are renowned, not state institutions. The day that you bring me evidence that Hamas and Hezbollah is recognized as an organization that is reputable in the world, then I will come to the table. But it's not. So the difference between South Africa, in conclusion on this point, and Mozambique, Angola, Zimbabwe, Namibia, DRC is we bloody stuck our neck out. We wrote checks that our bodies can't cash, and now it's bouncing, and we've got to take the flak. Like you said, Chris, every single action has a reaction. And FAFO, we are at FA at the moment. We don't know what FO is coming.
Well, it is coming, but 2 points on that. Number one, so the thing with Rasool, and then I want to get back to some of the egregious offenses. The thing with Rasool is that, look, Neil, I've served all over Africa, in the Middle East, and Europe, working in embassies, and I've been stationed and been a diplomat accredited in 8 countries in Africa, all over the continent: North Africa, West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa. And I have heard some of the most vile and repulsive things repeated about Americans in private with diplomats from other countries, sharing their personal opinions, because we're being frank. That's okay. But you don't say those things in public, in a public forum. You do not do that. That's the first rule here. And everyone knows this. It wasn't a mistake. Okay, so now let me get to the egregious offenses. So let's just run through a short litany of some of the things that South Africa has done to the U.S. recently. When COVID struck, the United States started Operation Warp Speed under Donald Trump to come up with a vaccine in a record period of time. And never mind whether it's the efficacy or if it's good or bad, we're not having that conversation. But what I'm saying is that the U.S. manufacturers developed this within 7 months, which is unprecedented, and it was put on the marketplace. South Africa's Aspen Pharmacare and the rest of the pharmaceutical industry could have participated in those trials. But what do we get? No, they're trying to test it on black people. Oh, evil. Academics from all over Africa. So the people who were tested overwhelmingly were white Americans and Brits, because GlaxoSmithKline was also part of this, So that's who was the guinea pigs for those vaccines. So then they refused to participate in it. Therefore, they were outside the window to get access to the vaccine. So Ramaphosa in South Africa decided to sign up with the COVAX scheme from the United Nations to acquire a vaccine. But they didn't produce anything, so they're only buying from people who are taking the risk and burning through the money to develop it. So when South Africa wasn't getting vaccine from COVAX, instead of telling South Africans, well, we're not getting the stuff we were promised by COVAX, he started attacking the West, the United States in particular. Vaccine apartheid, denigrating America. Then we gave Aspen Pharmacare $711 million from the U.S. and European Union to manufacture jabs in South Africa for distribution around the continent. I have yet to see proof of one jab ever produced in the 4 years since it got $711 million. So that happens. Then, of course, in 2018, when Trump had his silly tweet about farm murders, I don't know what Donald Trump knows about South Africa, but he can keep us American. We'll keep it. I mean, the insults from Ramaphosa have been endless, and the list just goes on and on and on and on. It's own goals. None of that's necessary. It's all for populist base, and the ANC is getting less popular. So why are you saying stupid things to attract the base that's no longer listening to you when all it's doing is damaging your international ties? The U.S. has been incredibly patient with South Africa to a fault, and we are still not punishing South Africa, but Thor's hammer is coming. And if they keep running their mouth, it's going to come very soon.
I think, Chris, yes, it is a litany of own goals. People still probably on this channel frequently say, but this absolute, sorry, I'm going to use the word bullshit about me being an agent and chameleon and leopards don't spots and kakenhare. Let me quickly tell you frankly, I am a person that is currently battling various things in my life. For 4 years now, I have funded, I have promoted, and I have operated my own political party. And if you look at my track record, Chris, for 4 years, you will be bearing witness. I've never changed my stance. I have, in actual fact, increased the public attacks on the governing party. You know that. I am very clear. I have my past, maar wragtig. I am trying to help. I am trying to be a voice that knows the past and knows the present. I'm offering that up, Chris, and it's not listened to. They are still questioning me. The right wing, the far right, I have no time for you. The far left, I have no time. I'm a moderate, Chris. My politics has changed in 30 years. So here's the opinion. We have the DA, and no matter what we are now going to say, they are the second largest party in this country. They are the only other vessel, for the moment, that can stand up and say no. So that's the reality. Shocking, though, yesterday, my prediction and your prophecy has come true. MK took part in their first by-election, and they won.
In the Western Cape. In the Western Cape. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm glad, Neil, that you recognize that. I've been warning about that for some time. I said we'll see the true measure whether MK has any sticking power when they win a ward in the Western Cape or constituents in the Western Cape, and they did, and they won it convincingly. The ANC controlled that ward. The DA is non-existent. This is in their own backyard in Saldanha Bay. I realize the neighborhood it's in, but still the DA should have done better. They came in like at least 5th or 6th out of 8 parties. The EFF, which is floundering, outdid the DA in that ward. So, it's not shocking, but it ought to get people's attention. If Jacob Zuma, who has been drawing most of his base from ethnic Zulu in KZN and in Gauteng, can expand his base for MK, which was 14.6% in the national elections, 45% in KZN. That says a big difference there. There's a huge disconnect. If he was getting 45% in KZN, but 2 or 3% in the Western Cape or 3% in Gauteng, now they're winning wards in by-elections. That doesn't bode well for the rest of the political situation. But the ANC is more than a wounded beast. They're in jeopardy of becoming a minor party at this point. I'm not predicting that, but I'm saying that, and you also talked about this too, but I warned people. I had a conversation with Kanthan Pillay the other day, and I said, this will be a bellwether ward, and it was right. I was right.
I'm going to predict
three
things now. Number one, the tactic of MK has never been to be patiently waiting for next year's election. They are not going to wait for 2029. They've got two huge obstacles. They've got an elderly person who is the current momentum and face of their party. They've got to ensure, I'm telling you, they have to get in the shots while this man is breathing. People are saying to me, but Neil, the minute that Jay-Z dies, you must be careful because he will then become a martyr. And that is sometimes worse than a man that's bloody alive. So stop this dreaming that when he dies, MK is done. This is a rebel of a revolutionary group that does not think but are strategic. So point one, they are going to partake now in every by-election in this country where it's possible. They struck and did their strike yesterday. First payload, download it. Not a good thing. Number two, Chris, here's what people miss, my man. They're missing this. Here's the fact. The massive onslaught of the MK party was strategic to bring disgraced Judge Slope into the fold to lead MK in parliament. Why the hell do you think they did that? They didn't do that because Slope is a genius in politics. He's not a good orator. But what is he? He is a sneaky fellow that understands the Constitution. What is MK's most fundamental principle? It is to attack and amend such Constitution, if I'm right. So that is point two. They are going to have a vehement attack on the Constitution. That's where the people missed John and they missed Helen, they missed Cyril on the point of the land without compensation matter. The constitutional point has not been changed, Section 25. That's what MK is mad about. So, last prediction, Chris, and this is a very clear one on your show, first time. As the GNU, which is the only entity currently, like it or not, weak or strong, fighting amongst each other like a coalition is a fact of the matter. Helen said that last week. It's not easy, but it is in place. For now, it is in place definitely until December 2027, because then it is ANC conference. And if we have time, I'd like to tell you what is the latest on that movement. But factually, that person that takes over the chair in December 2027 could be totally anti-GNU. He could withdraw Cyril, like they've done with Mbeki and Jacob, and they could replace him and call the GNU at an end. The only option this country has is doomsday. It is an ANC-MK-EFF collaboration. Sorry, that's a reality. Because the DA is the only party that has above the threshold of 22. Yes, the PA will grow, but it's not 2029 yet. So here's the prediction, Chris. If I was part of the GNU, if I was part of Parliament, if I was part of the opposition parties in the GNU, because ANC I am never joining in my life, but let's call it quits, I am who I am, I would be doing the following. I would just be making sure, Chris, that I keep the 51% in place. And why am I saying that? Like a good goalkeeper, there's one thing we will never be able to allow, and that is that the ANC and whoever they then choose after the GNU fails which it won't because we'll keep it, is 66.6, Chris.
Change the Constitution.
That's the magic number. That's the magic number.
That's the threshold. Yes. Which the ANC actually had that 20 years ago and they didn't exercise it.
whoa, hang on. So if you tell me play my hockey pucks, I know currently that the ANC, another poll, they say the only poll that's really true is the one in Mavericks, is they are saying that the ANC is polling at 27.2%. Okay, let's take that as a poll. Polls, you and me, we've gone through that stuff. But let's say it's true. And let's say we go to the national election. Chris, we can't, and now it's shocking, we can't allow the ANC to go below 25. Because I'm telling you, there's no way in hell, even with the might power of the world, that the DA will go to 30, 40, or 50%. It's not possible. It will rise. Now, I would say the most perfect solution, Chris, is that the ANC stays above the 25 threshold because the DA is not going to get to 40, 50. They will get more, but then we've got the scale of balance. If the DA can go from 22 to 25% minimum, and the ANC, let's say, dwindles from the 40 to either 30 or 25, it means that still the main partners in the GNU has a 50% block, and then with the added advantage of the Patriotic Alliance, of the Freedom Front Plus, and, like it or not, the IFP, we still get over the threshold of 51%.
Well, yeah, you make a very valid point there. People are happy about the demise of the ANC, but what are the alternatives? Because those voters aren't going to flee to the DA or the Inkatha Freedom Party or Action SA or something like that, although I'm not really sure what we can count on for Action SA. But the bottom line here is that, yeah, I don't see the DA getting above 30%. That seems to be the magic number they can never get. Let's say they get 30%. Well, the IFP isn't going to get back to 10%. They could have done that if they participated fully in the first elections, if they'd been legitimate in 94. But even if the IFP, they're going to get 5 or 6% best if they have a great performance. That'd be a 50% increase for them. And the Freedom Front Plus is going to gain some votes in the next election for people who are pissed off the DA and go back to Freedom Front Plus. But that's just going to slice votes away. So the votes are going to go to MK and they're going to go to PA and other parties. PA is probably reliable in this. But the bottom line here is that I agree with your point that people may be happy to see the ANC slide down the scale, but you got to think about how far can they go down the scale before you have a problem. They get below 25% and the DA is 23%. That's about 48. You need a minor party like the PA or maybe the UIM in the next election, to get you over the 50%. But you get below that, you start getting into some serious problems. Then you've got people trying to form alliances with MK and EFF, whatever's left of EFF. So I think you're onto something there. And I think a lot of people are completely missing that one, Neil. They're not really paying attention to the challenges there. But I mean, I just hope we get to the next election. Things are not looking good. They're looking grim for South Africa across the board.
I will tell you that the ANC will not be destroyed like many people are wishing, and I pray. But there is no alternative to get still the mass non-white vote in this country. So you better understand that when you look at, there are only 4 parties, Chris, that are going to grow in the next 3 years. Yes, we can say the UIM is a draw card, but my 1 seat, 2 seats, 3 seats is going to be definitively not 1%. I can only grow in the increments I can, but +1 has won us rugby games. But I'm being realistic here, Chris. The baton carriers to keep the GNU, to keep a democratic, free market and capitalist society alive in this country, is that the DA will grow, they must grow, so that they can ensure that they get over the threshold of 25. We call it 30. We don't know, but that is what we pray. The Patriotic Alliance, I can tell you now, under Gayton McKenzie, is not going to remain the size they are. They will grow.
Yeah,
I have full understanding that they are going to grow, and we mustn't underestimate that party. So you are going to have that at least as, may I call it, tent peg number 3 of the 5. IFP, no matter what we say about leadership, about current scenario, they have a constituency which is mainly based on ethnic border, but they will be a player. And then Freedom Front, new leader, Corneille Mulder, Peter Groenewald stepping down and saying he is stepping down because he wants the future generation to move on. Thank God he is staying as Minister of Correctional Services. We're going to still need Doc in that position. And then, Chris, if we can defend the 58 or the 60-point line, I am saying to you, obviously you want to have control of the country. But right now, we will take the 51% majority, maybe move it to 62, and stay consequent in the GNU to keep away the alternative, Chris, which is, in my opinion, doomsday, Armageddon, economically, and frankly, if MK and the EFF take this country into their hands, we have been defeated then as a current, sophisticated economy in the world.
100%. Hey, Neil, let's shift gears and talk about a strange phenomenon going on. Now, I've interviewed some of the parties involved. So what we're talking about here specifically is that AfriForum and Solidarity came to the States. In addition, the Democratic Alliance came here as a political party, not as a member of the GNU. Both got meetings with members of the House and Senate, Democrats, Republicans, some think tanks in town, as well as an office call at the White House. Excuse me. And now people are telling me, and I didn't hear from this, which I'm a little disappointed because I've given them a platform to share their views over the past, but Phil Craig from the Cape Independence Advocacy Group and the Reform, or not the Reform Party, the Cape Independence Party, is apparently coming to the States to talk about Cape secession. Any thoughts on this plethora? Because, and the reason I ask is that the one group that has got no meeting with the White House and with senior members like Ted Cruz of the Senate would be the government of South Africa. They're getting no meetings. The door is closed. There's no room at the inn. Take your pregnant wife out to the barn, the manger. Maybe the Magi, the three wise men will show up and things go well, but don't count on that. Because we hear Ronnie Lamola and we hear the spokesperson and the presidency of Vincent Mangwenya talk about how we're engaging with America. That's nonsense. I'm engaging more with the government of South Africa than you are with the U.S. government, simply because I know you're watching my videos, ANC. Start listening. Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth? Stop kicking own goals. This is not hard. It can all be calmed down. But seriously, I mean, this government of South Africa can't get the time of day. I mean, if they would call Uber and they say, hey, we're from the ANC, they're like, screw you, man. I'm picking up people down the street. They can't get an office call. But everyone else is getting an office call. What do you got to say about that? I think it's crazy.
Well, I think after Cape Independence comes there, I think Boswell Wilkie Circus will arrive on Tuesday. Without a doubt, some people that they will levitate out of the homeless fatigue, put them in suits, will then come on Thursday. And it is just going to be an epitaph of absolute circus clowns continually knocking on the door and saying to the people, excuse me, can we have some time? Now, who are they meeting? You know, to be really frank and honest, I am telling you, and I might be wrong, and therefore I will hoist myself on my own batard, if so. Maar hulle praat met absolute mense wat geen rede het nie. They are talking to insignificant people that are currently running around and saying, no, we definitely have Donald. Well, they didn't meet Donald. They didn't meet Marcus Rubio. They didn't even meet the SecDef. They didn't even meet the person that is now being appointed. I think, if I'm not wrong, it's Ted Cruz, who currently is running that desk in the future. So who did they talk to? So, you know, me, I can go to Parliament and talk to the admin clerk that makes coffee for Jacob Zuma. And then I can take a picture out of the Parliament and say, fuck, it was he. What a lot of rubbish. So the only people that made a truthful constitutional attempt, may I say, is in actual fact the DA that went there and said they will go and intervene. They are a GNU partner, but they didn't get the status. But they did that. Number two, you are very right. No South African official diplomat, state-sanctioned entity has had the door opened. In actual fact, it's just shut. AfriForum and Solidariteit went there, and this is my opinion, like it or not, they went there because they do have a certain constituency democratically in this country. So if Kali Kriel and Jacob Strauss and Johan Kukumur and Dewald de Venter and who they are else decided that they are going to use their own money, their own discretion, they don't need permission, unless I have not seen we have totally changed to a dictatorial, totalitarian state. Now, I was coming. And I wasn't coming there because I want to stand and eat the Dagwood, the hot dog, and see the signs of New York and flitter myself around the White House. Donner, every other house here is white. So I don't need to go and do that. I'll tell you on this platform what my strategy would be. And it probably is a risk, I'm telling you. I would not go see Donald Trump. I would not go see Marcus Rubio. I would go see certain people, Chris, who, if Donald decides to moer and bliksemas, he will send them. Now, I'm not going to go into detail, but who are them? Well, Chris.
You don't have to go into detail, but I'll tell you, it's Ted Cruz, Scott Bessent, Marco Rubio.
Boom. And, every kind of person that works in the X industry that I and you come from. Because at the end of the day, the people that carry the brass on the shoulder are the instigators of the political world. So I'm not coming there to talk to a politician or a secretary of state or an admin clerk. I'm coming there to talk to the people that I know will come here and implement whatever cuck anybody wants to. So I'm going there for that reason. I am going to sit there because I can talk about the past, Chris. I can speak about transition. I can speak about the times of the apartheid entity because we worked together, by the way, in the late 80s and 90s and the 70s with the US SecDef and with your foreign department. We are not unknown to you. We were in the battles of Namibia and Angola with US until obviously the US decided that they weren't going to support the total invasion of Angola. I wonder what would have happened. But plain and simple, Chris, I'm coming there if I come to have a very clear meeting with the people that carry the brass, that make the decisions, and maybe sometimes work on the dark side. But it will be a public meeting. I will address it. I also understand our laws of our country. In other words, foreign aid to military assistance and declaration. No, I'm not coming there to talk war. I'm not coming there to talk insurrection. I'm coming there to give clarity on my perspective, and I might just achieve absolutely zero, but I will leave there having dumped my goal and clarity. And that's why, sarcastically, Chris, I said, I'll go as ambassador. And the people went, yeah, why not? Well, I've got a huge litany of diplomatic experience when I was running the Invest Fund Africa. I have got huge empathy on the African Union side, being a person that assisted many places on the continent, like you. We have traveled, Chris. So I will really not take that job. I think I'm destined for something else shortly. But here's the point. They better sort out this. They better build and get the bridges built back. And they better do it sooner than later, because this has a ramification, not just on the USA. When the IMF, the World Bank, and so-called we running the G20, we are chairing the G20, and we are dealing in what currency? Sorry, Chris, remind me what money
would be the dollar. And who has the most votes in the IMF and World Bank, and where are they based? In Washington, D.C. So that $1.5 billion loan that they want is not going to happen if they keep this up.
The US, sir.
Yeah, 1.5 billion, not rand, dollars, yeah. But that's not going to happen.
But Chris, sorry, if the Federal Reserve of the United States of America decides that no more currency will be given to this country, it can throttle and shut it down. It can threaten the IMF, and it can seclude the UN and say, we pay you, we give you money. But here's the shocking revelation. We are under the impression, and I will tell you now, this is a fact. We as the South African government are actually under the impression that someone else is going to replace the United States of America in this country as an economic partner. No, we're actually dreaming this. This is fantasy. And it ain't going to work, sir. So I'm saying
your market with Russia is non-existent. China wants your minerals, doesn't want to sell you goods. They don't want your finished products. It's not a good look.
And let me tell you, when I sat and saw how Donald treated Zelensky, I sat and said, do you know how much assistance and money the US gave to Ukraine in the couple of past years as absolute funding principle? And let me quickly tell you, Chris, they cut that man like a scalpel cuts a banana. And if you think that we as South Africa are actually more critical than Ukraine, Russia at the moment, we are in la la land. So we are not going to get a scalpel from the US. We are going to get a bloody massive chainsaw cutting our limbs if we are not careful.
Well, look, Elon Musk has got his chainsaw for Doge, cutting our budget. So, I mean, he can just turn it the other direction and come after South Africa. But listen, you talked about something, and I just want to talk about the cloud cuckoo land approach of politics in South Africa. So, of course, Margaret Thatcher famously applied that literary title, Cloud Cuckoo Land, to Zimbabwe when it was still Rhodesia because she didn't want to deal with it. But I've been calling South Africa Cloud Cuckoo Land for a while now, too. And here's the thing. So when AfriForum and Solidarity came here, and people lost their mind. Charge them with treason! Open dockets with the Hawks for treason. I mean, they exercised their democratic rights under South Africa, and they lobbied the U.S. government. The ANC did the same thing during the apartheid era. They lobbied London and Paris and Berlin, or Bonn back then, not Berlin, and Washington to get the same thing. And that wasn't seen as wrong. So they did nothing wrong. Second, you've alluded to the fact that you probably believe they didn't really talk to anybody's substance. Maybe that's true. So if they didn't talk to anybody's substance, then why are people screaming treason? And here's the ridiculous thing. So I have been rubbished by a number of media outlets in South Africa who are simply lying about the things I've said. I never claimed it. So one of the things that came up was professor from Stellenbosch, I won't mention by name because I don't want to get in a pissing contest, but Professor from Stellenbosch blamed AfriForum and Solidarity for the sanctions that Trump put on South Africa. Number one, there are no sanctions. Tell me what the sanctions are. They non-existent. Number two, AfriForum and Solidarity went to D.C. after the executive order was issued. They had no communication with the White House prior to that. So blaming them for that is ludicrous. This is just a standard boogeyman. Just like when apartheid, you had people say, the blacks, the blacks, the blacks, the blacks. It's the same thing now. The whites, the whites, the whites. It's just inverse from what it was 40 years ago. And it's tragic to see people use skin pigmentation in this fashion to attack groups that they don't agree with. If you don't agree with AfriForum and Solidarity, not you, but I'm saying if you don't agree with them, then you simply address them as organizations. If you agree with them, fine. If you don't. But you don't attack people based on immutable factors they can't control. I mean, if you're a deuce, you can control being an Indian. If you're a Mampara, you can control being a Mampara. But if you have green eyes, you can't control that unless you put contact lenses in. And that's fake. You can't change your skin color unless you bleach it, and that's just dumb. Or you get a tan. I don't want a tan. It just causes skin cancer, you know? I was cheated in life. I was denied fair skin pigmentation. Therefore, I'm susceptible to skin cancer. I have to hide from the sun. Do you think that's fair? I want reparations. I want my money. Anyway, the point I'm making, Neil, just seriously, get back to the serious point, is that all this rubbish about, them causing this, they had no impact on what Trump's doing. It predates Trump. It has nothing to do with AfriForum Solidarity. If anything, they got a courtesy call and they put their points across, and maybe somebody's listening to them, but it is not why there's an executive order. It is not why Trump has made this this statement about South Africa, these statements. It has nothing to do with AfriForum Solidarity. And to hear people say that. Now, I will say, before I wrap up and give you a chance to jump in here, that Rebecca Davis from the Daily Maverick did mention, and she said something similar. She said, well, who did they see? We have no evidence they saw anybody in D.C. Anybody can take a picture at the White House, in the background. And I said, you know what? If AfriForum and Solidarity are charged and they have to go to court for treason, their star witness should be Rebecca Davis from the Daily Maverick, because she herself said they didn't meet anybody. So how could they have changed U.S. foreign policy? And oh, by the way, she called me a right-wing podcaster, not a university professor, not a polyglot, not an intelligence officer, not a businessman, not a radio host, not a published author, but a right-wing podcaster. So on our show, you may have caught it, we welcome all the Neanderthals, courtesy of Noto Beloye, all the Neanderthals and canines, as well as the right-wing podcasters.
You had a good rant there.
I know. Well, you got a couple, and that was my first one of the show.
Budweiser. Chris, I think by now, people must please accept this. I will not be race baited. I will not get into a racial discussion. If there's one thing on my bloody tombstone that you can write about me, is I am not a racist, Chris. I have evidence. I would not have fought for another culture, another race, and their freedom if I was not committed to humanity. Call it what you want. What people forget is that we need to take out the emotional factors in this matter. It is not a debate about black and white. It is not a debate about upper power and lower power. This is a debate about a country, South Africa, who currently sits in many of its own problems, not created by the USA. This is pre-USA. Zondo had nothing to do with sanctions and Donald Trump. Looting had nothing to do with it. The collapse of Eskom and every other bloody SOE had nothing to do with Donald Trump. With respect. So we've got to choose where we want to do, and like the Bible, we all choose a verse and make it our own to justify our own cause. This is not going to work. I said sarcastically, and I will declare it, that AfriForum and Solidariteit went for a picture pose. They didn't. They did meet people. They definitely did. Now, you will know, I don't know if you know it, but I'll say it here. I actually invite the investigation and court case against AfriForum and Solidariteit. Not because I am chastising them. This must then go to a public hearing in a court of law. And I won't hesitate to every day buy my popcorn and slush, because that will be a common international court case that will be viewed by the world. And there, Chris, maybe there, not in annuals of Daily Mavericks and back-end papers that are putting out Stratcom and false narratives, but in a court of law, there will be the viewing of the world. Trust me, Fox, CNN, BBC will be there. And there we can state then a judicial court case on based evidence, not emotion, Chris. So if we are saying there's 142 racial laws in this country, that will have to be put under the judge's nose. If we are saying that there are far murders in this country and it is a proven matter on the crime stat, it can be put into the court case. And then once and for all, the people that are feeling bereaved, which are the minorities, and hey, I'm one, are feeling more and more that this country is not wanting that kind of generation in this country. We are here, we are citizens, and I've got a birth certificate. So, Chris, to wind this rant up, let me quickly tell you, I invite such cases. Charge us with treason so that we can go to an international court, because you recognize the ICJ by charging Israel. So I have the same right, your worship, to take you to the ICJ and be heard. And the problem is South Africa had and did sign the co-signature of recognizing the ICC and ICJ. They have to. So I won't just fight this case in the Supreme Court. I won't just fight this in the Constitutional Court. If necessary, we will go to Den Haag. So this is not a short journey. This is proof of evidence. And finally, Chris, let me quickly tell you, and this is reality. We have an absolute generation that had nothing to say for 30 years against the abolishment of apartheid, the new system of the ANC, the progressive system of 30 years. They were very quiet because, Chris, they didn't care about the past. They wanted to go on with life. That is now the current young generation under 30 years old. What happened in this country, and this is the most blatant accusation I can give this ANC today, is everything, Chris, that the people in 94 did to put this thing behind us has been destroyed, it has been ripped apart, and it no longer exists about this Rainbow Nation. We have made it relevant again. And to me, as Neil de Beer, that is the saddest consequence that I can see after giving, sorry to tell you, more than 3/4 of my life in service to this country.
That's a fair point, Neil. So there's a couple things, comment on that. Number one is, so I've been busy. There's a development near my development nearby. It used to be a horse ranch, and they're building houses over there. But they have a big field in the back, probably several hectares. I've been out busy setting up the FEMA tents for all the refugees. So we're gonna. The FEMA tents. Anyway, I still can't get over that. The Federal Emergency Management.
Just provide a huge fireplace, biltong, a bietjie Olofberg. Even I will be considered coming.
I'm not laughing at the people that want refugee status. I'm laughing at the lies about FEMA tents. The Federal Emergency Management Agency doesn't deal with refugees. That's and we don't put refugees in tents. They stay in hotels or places permanently. So that's the first thing. But, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're living in FEMA tents. I just thought I'd share that very quickly. No, but yeah, the Kifness, yeah, but that was Trump that said that, and he tried to turn it into something. But I didn't know it from Kifness. Anyway, so the second thing is that the ANC lacks moral authority. They like to pretend that South Africa has this great moral authority because you came out of apartheid and you had this Rainbow Nation transformation, which really was aborted in many respects, but never really got where people claimed it. But the moral authority, where was the African National Congress, which controlled the country at the time, in 2019 when the Gambia took a novel approach to challenge another country, the International Court of Justice, which is a court where, of course, states go to resolve conflicts. Famously, we've seen Botswana and Namibia took the Sududu Island case there, and it was awarded in Botswana's favor, and so it's Botswana territory. The Bokassa Peninsula in Nigeria, between Cameroon and Nigeria, was awarded in Cameroon's favor. So the point is that that's where states go to resolve their conflicts in a judicial sense, the ICJ. When the Gambia came up with the novel concept of let's take Myanmar to the court over their genocide of the Rohingya in 2019. The ANC didn't participate in that. They didn't offer an amicus brief. They weren't even a friend of the court. So where's their moral authority when it comes to genocide in Gaza when they ignored what was happening to the Rohingya there? What about the ANC having comments about what's happening to the Uyghurs in China? They're silent. What about the ANC talking about what happened to Tigray when the Ethiopians pushed them back and started executing prisoners of war and committing genocide in Tigray? Silent on this issue. They're silent on so many issues, and they pretend to have the high moral ground. They do not have the high moral ground. They're inconsistent. They only act when it's in their own parochial interest. And the only reason Gaza matters is two reasons, in my view. They're fellow travelers who have long ties to these clowns, and in my belief, they're doing this at the behest of Tehran, who are their friends and benefactors. But this is inconsistent. They try to stand and say, this is a genocide. We must stop it. We must stop it. But they say nothing about Myanmar, nothing about China, nothing about Tigray, nothing about Darfur, nothing about South Sudan. Now, no moral authority whatsoever. Zero for those who know what's going on.
Yeah, because but I think if you will agree with me, the world has changed, Chris.
Yeah.
It's not more the world that we had before. We've gone through the global conflicts of Vietnam. We've gone through the conflicts of North Darfur. We have gone through conflict after conflict in the world. And at the end of the day, conflicts in the world are now fought on a different way, Chris. It's beyond what you and I were taught in conventional warfare, Chris. We don't do conventional warfare. We do electronic warfare. We have escalated to what I call TD game wars, where you don't see the person through the steel cold blade of a bayonet. You see it through the eye of a drone. And that is where we've escalated ourselves to. It's become impersonal. And so has politics. So as today, you would have never said that Russia and Ukraine will be pressurized and that Putin will take an effective decision. And Donald Trump picked up a telephone. Now, who the hell are we going to side with? Because South Africa can't go sit now and talk to Russia because they know that Donald's talking to Russia. They can't go sit with India because they are signing huge trade agreements with the US. So this is going to perpetuate. And Chris, finally, farm murders in this country have been approached in a very, very wrong way. So let's dream a bit, Chris. If you put me in a position to focus on the reducing of farm murders in this country, I would change the attack strategy. It's not about farmers anymore, Chris. It's about defining the absolute defense of food security in this country. It's not about the color. It's not about the skin. It is about food security. And Chris, question to you. You have served in some of the most war-strived, poorest and poverty-ignited countries on the continent. What was the key factor in every one of those countries that made it finally collapse? Food. And the absolute shortage of food. Because, Chris, where I've been to Sierra Leone, where I've been to South Sudan in Juba, what did we see there? We saw skeletons. And when you're hungry, not peckish, hungry, you lose your mind. And then it's too late to save the country. So we've gone through that, Chris, by the way. We had a period of time, maybe 48 hours only, in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, when the looting happened, where in actual fact, our shops, our ShopRite, our Checkers, our Woolworths, our Spar was starting to run out of product on the shelves. And that caused a bigger panic than any politician could bring. That is what I'm trying to avert in this country, is not the substance of saying it's a white thing. No, it's a food thing. And that, I wanted to tell you, is in actual fact part of the debate of why the United States of America is saying you are not only vagrantly abusing the world system, but you are bringing your own country to the brink of collapse. And America, Chris, cannot allow South Africa to fall. Can I tell you on this show the only reason why I think we are not going to become Zimbabwe? Can I tell you?
Sure.
We are the most southern deep port harbor on the southern continent of Africa. And if you currently collapse and the war escalates in the Middle East, there is no Suez Canal. There is no more that rift, and they will have to come past our country. Now, America cannot allow China to rule this country, because then your ships, that free trade, will be stopped. And there's no other harbor, Chris, that is currently developed on the west or Indian coast of this country. So, whoa. We've got to be very clear about each other, about the strategic, geographic, and topographic positioning of this country. So, if I am leading this country, which I know the possibility is not, my first thing would be to put on the table that we have to address our strategic alignment, because US will fight for theirs, and I will fight for the Republic of South Africa's strategic scenario. But you know what we do? We walk away win-win. We don't do a deal where you lose and I win. I would immediately, if I take the embassy office, number one, I would declare that Iran will become neutral in our opinion, and we are not going to affiliate ourselves. Stand or don't stand, we are not partaking anymore. Number two, we will not recognize any internal state process of an organization that is declared by the world pariah. We will remove ourselves, and we will become neutral in that aspect, remove ourselves. Thirdly, we will agree that the balance between BRICS and the balance between Western economies must be handled in exactly that manner, balanced. Not 51, 59, 53, 52, 50-50 would be the right position of this country. And lastly, I would immediately sustain the current court case that was put by South Africa onto the ICJ. I would go to the African Union and I will put it on the table that if there's a majority vote that says that we should continue as South Africa on behalf of the world, then we will make our matter there. But that thing must be immediately withdrawn. I'll tell you why. We've got nothing to do with it. We have our own problems. We have got, yes, I know, we're going to go with the debate piece now on Israel's side. No, I'm not on anybody's side. I am on the side of the Republic of South Africa. And we've got enough cuck in this country to keep us busy for the next 30 years. So I'm saying, poke your nose out of world rubbish, calm down, and fight for your country. Not make South Africa just great again, but make the world see South Africa as great again, where our passport was absolutely revered in 94 and 95, where people thought of our country as a magnitude of peace-bearing and a miracle. Well, what did we do, Chris? Landing my plane right now. We've stuffed it up. We're getting FAFO thrown to ourselves, and we have a headless chicken running around as the president of this country, who is not just a limp person, but a bloody coward. And until he doesn't grow a backbone and start making decisions not as a communistic unionist junta, and get up and say, my name is Cyril Ramaphosa, and I know he's got it in him. He's got it in him. But he has to get up and say that I, as Cyril Ramaphosa, am not going to put the ANC in front of the reality of the future of the country that he negotiated in 1993 the peace of. So there's no one better that knows this country's relation than Rolf Meyer and Cyril Ramaphosa. So in total conclusion, Chris, that is the actions I would take. That is the diplomatic recourse, and it does not have to fall back on our people that supports Palestine. It doesn't have to actually then encroach on our people that supports Israel, because we won't allow that debate to conquer the future of this country. In no way.
Well, those are great points, Neil. Just something from the chat very quickly, unrelated to what we're talking about. Someone said, I'd really love for Chris to interview young Afrikaners. Well, I have, but nobody cares. And there's a hazard with interviewing young Afrikaners for a situation like this. Most of them have no idea what they're talking about. Most of them haven't had any life experience. And I'm not rubbishing the youth. It's okay for me to talk to young Afrikaners at an event and have a conversation, have short things. But having long, drawn-out conversations like this about geostrategic issues is not something most young Afrikaners know. There's an exception. But in the past, I've interviewed Rene Kruger. I've interviewed Willem Petzer years ago. But young Afrikaners won't go on camera. They're afraid for the most part. I can't find them. So that's why. Now, let me get back to the topic you're talking about. So throughout my career as an intelligence analyst, intelligence officer, I always looked at this from a holistic standpoint. And you've talked about something, food security there. So let me touch on that. So while my peers in the Army were looking at how many Soviet tanks, how many artillery groups, and how many BMM-21s, rocket launchers and all that, and what are the tactics, meeting engagement and defense and all that. Yeah, I learned all that too, and I was excellent at that. But I looked at a bigger picture. What is the infrastructure, the lines of communication? What is the political infrastructure? Security is much more than simply battles and law enforcement. It's also food security. It's energy security. It is so many other things. And when I went to South Africa in 2000, when I was doing a trip around the continent, as part of my basic internship working for the Foreign Area Officer Program based at Tunisia, I went and I met with people who were running HIV programs in 2000. Remember, it was being denied in South Africa by Thabo Mbeki at this time. He wasn't, so I was talking about this, and I went to the Botswana Christian AIDS Intervention Program up in Maun at the Okavango Delta, and I met this Danish woman who was working there, and I had my business card that I prepared. It said, Captain Wyatt, U.S. Army, with my email address, and she agreed to talk to me, and then after we finished talking, she said, before we got started, she said, let me get this right, you're an American. Yeah, I'm in the Army. You're in the Army, and you want to know about HIV in Botswana. I said, well, in Africa in general. Why? Why would you want to know about HIV? I said, because HIV is a game changer potentially. This is 2000, Neil. I said, this is a game changer potentially. She said, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, she knew what it meant, but she wanted to know what I said, well, here's the problem with HIV. When it does manifest and you get AIDS or you get an opportunistic infection, you can't go to work. You're weakened. And so productivity in the workforce is diminished. Now, in America, it's a tragedy if a banker or if a physician or a dentist gets HIV and dies. But in Botswana, it's devastating if the handful of bankers or doctors or dentists, it completely destroys your infrastructure and your economy. So the effect, and on top of that, you have a tradition in much Southern Africa, in particular, of people disappearing for a week because funerals don't last for a day like they do in America. It's like going to New Orleans. It's an event. It goes on, and all these people are away from the workforce. So you have this knock-on effect. And then I said at the time, which, I'm not a medical professional, but people were really impressed by this. I said, and what about co-infection with tuberculosis? I mean, this is insidious. They feed off each other. And so my point is that When I look at security, it's holistic. It's everything. I look at trade, I look at health, I look at income, I look at debt. All of that affects. And I loved it when one of our chiefs of staff for the military a couple years back said the gravest security threat to America is our national debt, because it's going to bankrupt our country. And it was brilliant. So my point, Neil, is that I love it when we have a conversation talking about things holistically. On the food thing, Tunisia's government nearly collapsed years ago before Ben Ali because they took the subsidy off of bread. Bread was subsidized and sold at a loss throughout Tunisia. And it was kept at a fixed price. They removed the subsidy because the government didn't have the money to subsidize the bread anymore. And they had food riots. People were killed in the south of Tunisia over the price of bread rising. And then when I was in Liberia, the price of a bag of parboiled rice went from $18 a bag to $67 a bag in less than a year because the Chinese were buying up all the commodities and there wasn't enough rice. And we nearly had riots in the streets of Monrovia after just getting to peace because rice was so expensive. Fortunately, the U.S. donated some rice and it eased the market. But the point is that food can be devastating. And as you said, in the internal ANC insurrection of July 2021 in KZN, when the SANDF went down there and deployed, they didn't have any rations. So they jumped to the front of the queue for the only ShopRites and Pick and Pays and Checkers that weren't burned up. So yeah, food could be the next conflict. People talk about water, but resources is the bottom line. People fight over resources and access. And so I appreciate you bringing that into the conversation, talking about food insecurity, because if they keep attacking farms, if the farms that are purchased or confiscated and turned over to others aren't producing, then eventually South Africa's going to have a food issue and a food security problem.
Chris, this is orchestrated. There's a story behind the story. This is not a plain and simple crime. I am seeing evidence, and so is many people in this country, of military-grade equipment now being used by these farm attackers. Let me explain. The other day, in a horrific farm attack, some of the people were caught. And in their possession, Chris, was a backpack, and in the backpack was a sophisticated military-grade signal blocker. One I can't even have thought. What are they doing with this? Where are they getting it? Because this is not a farm rabble that's just running on an opportunity because farmers have got three things that they want. They know that farmers have capital and cash on their farm because they can't travel into town every day. They've got to pay the workers. Number two, they know that the average farmer in this country has a firearm. They want that. Number three, they know that a farmer has got vehicles. They want that. And number four, they know that it will take approximately 30 to 40 to 80 minutes to get response on a rural farm. This is a perfect target for a person that has criminal intent. But what is worse in this country? It's not a murder. It is not a vicious attack. It is not a crime. It is torture. There's an added scenario to the brutality of this. And now I've added my synopsis that someone is behind this orchestration. Now, Chris, the only way that we can ensure food security, because the next level of food security is called famine. And that's a bad one because in this country, we've also got the weather we are fighting. We've had a change of Minister of Agriculture in this country. He is new to this, but I can tell you one thing. His focus and declaration on trying to bring stability to food security in the GNU is, at this current moment, the only light of ray we've got. Finally, Chris, except for food security, I want to make it clear. The African National Congress should not fear the GNU. The African National Congress, who went into this GNU, should build the GNU and not destroy it. The only people in the ANC that will destroy this GNU are people with hidden agendas, people that have got bank accounts that have been filled and have been proven and promised indemnity of anything that they did in the past and in the future. We've spoken about that today. Neither I, surely not you, or any other person that finds this country beautiful is asking for war, is asking for strife, is asking for a remedy that will make this country worse. We are asking for stability in the governance on the main principles of water, electricity, finance, cutting my bloody lawn, trimming my tree, and refuse removal, Chris. Now, you know about that because you've done a bit of politics and nearly became one yourself. And you know that the main issues are not who is the president and the vice president. It's about, are you removing my waste? Are you going to paint our boat? Sorry, this is the what do you call the meat and potatoes at the end of the day, Chris. So we've got to get back to meat and potatoes. We've got to do that, but we cannot do it without money. We cannot do it without fiscal support, and we cannot do it without partnering with the United States of America.
Well, folks, there's 1,799 people currently watching this program and just 761 likes. Could we hit the like button there? I mean, we could do better than that. Over 6,000 people have tuned in so far during the broadcast. All right, Neil. Now, for the audience, Neil might be referring to an incident that I'm not familiar with, but there is a photo that's circulating now on social media that's from 2015 with cell phone jammers. I don't know if he's talking about a different incident. Now, I reported on this on LinkedIn and on Twitter when that happened in 2015, and I also wrote an article, which was never published, about the criminal syndicates that are using police-issued service weapons in holsters and also carrying cell phone jammers attacking farms. And the photograph that's circulating on social media, I don't know if you might have been talking about a different one. But that photo is from 2015, and the News 24 has gone to the trouble to try to rubbish that story and falsely accuse people of using it to promote the narrative that syndicates are involved. Well, they have long been involved. Yes, some are crimes of opportunity. Some are crimes of revenge, very few. Most are targeted attacks for the very reasons you just said a few moments ago, and I've said for a long time. They're a consequence of people being isolated, no response times, no defense, and it's so easy to overwhelm people that they do this. And now with people afraid to shoot people because you don't have the castle doctrine, but I'll tell you this. You come on my property and my family are in the house, and the chances are if I shoot you, I go to jail. Well, guess who's going to get shot?
Well, so be it.
Yeah, you're going to get shot. I'm over it. I will take the risk going to jail to save my family, and then they can get out and go somewhere else. There's no question about it. But I don't want people to be confused about this. I don't know if Neil's talking about another incident, but News 24 is taking that story, and they're taking quotes from people's social media trying to say, and they're like, because someone said the cell phone jammer was like 350,000 Rand. Well, when this happened 10 years or 2015, 9 years ago, or 10 years ago, it may have cost 350,000 Rand, but those things weren't available to the general public at that time. You can only get them if you were in the military. Now they're available. You can buy them. So the point here is not to rubbish the story. The point is that it does happen, and it's not simply a case of crimes of opportunity. And very quickly, one anecdotal story. When I went to South Africa in 2000, I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal on the flight down there, coming from Europe to South Africa, because I had to go from Tunisia to Europe and Europe to South Africa. There's no direct flights. And then I got to South Africa, and I'm reading the Wall Street Journal about a farmer in KwaZulu-Natal who had gone to the bank to pick up his pay for his farm workers, brought it back on the Friday evening. They broke in his farm. They locked his wife in the pantry. They pistol whipped this 74, 77-year-old man repeatedly. I think he was 74 years old, and trying to get more information about where his guns were and where other things were. And they beat him to death over the pay. Now, what happened was the wife, they were going to go deal with her probably after that. She managed to get out a window, escape, and go through the thorn bushes near Elandskral in KwaZulu-Natal, not far from Rorkersdrift. This is where this is at. And she escaped and got someone. They called, they came, they found her husband beaten to death. Now, these weren't Afrikaners. These weren't English. These were retired Norwegians who heard about the plight of Zulu in KZN who couldn't find farm work. They took their retirement. They moved to South Africa. They bought a disused farm that was not in use. They purchased it. They hired 25 Zulus, employed them, and a couple of their employees were greedy. So they contacted gangsters in Joburg and had them drive all the way down to KZN and steal the money and murder this guy. This is what happens in South Africa. That is a targeted attack because people are remote, they're vulnerable, there's no response time. The dissolution of the commandos was a tragic mistake, which was done intentionally almost 20 years ago. I said so inside the intelligence community at the time, that farm murders would spike, rural insecurity will rise, drug trafficking will increase, and human trafficking. And all of that's come to fruition because the ANC's lie that the commandos were a racist organization. They were Minutemen that predated apartheid. It goes all the way back to the very beginning. My point here is that people, Neil, if we're talking about the same one and maybe someone's giving you bad information or maybe you're talking about another one, if you're talking about another incident, then that just reinforces that syndicates are involved. But it's real. It did happen in 2015. The photograph that I'm talking about was from 2015, and I talked about at the time. If we have Johnny-come-lately journalists who show up in 2025 and don't know history and are too lazy to research, well, that's on them. But some of us were here. We have the receipts. We can tell the truth about what really happened.
That's not about the cell phone blocker. It's just a point of 10 points in the mechanism.
Exactly.
That has started. Number one, cell phone blocker is one, but an AK-47, the last time I bloody checked, is a weapon of war, Chris.
Yeah.
So it's sophisticated. Where they're getting it from. Number three, frequently on our crime stats and our News 24 will bloody look at that. We are finding people that come from Mozambique that are trapped across the border with explosives. So that's the third point. Where they're getting the explosives from. They use it for cash in transit. They use it for every kind of crime and robbery. So it is a pattern of war-backed support as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't come out of South Africa only. It's perforated because of our neighbors at the end of the day. They've got better access to these weaponry in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, and wherever they come from, because they are currently themselves at strife. Finally, Chris, when you start using weapons of war in what we are depicting as domestic crime, it's not just the farmers that are now being murdered by these domestic warfare matters. It is now our citizens at the rate of probably 80 a day that are gunned down by R4 rifles, R5 rifles, AK-47s, which I'm sorry, is weapons of war. So we've got
those people, Neil, sorry, that are being gunned down are mostly black South Africans.
Yes, sir. It is the multitude. They're gunning down 8-12 in a tavern at the time. It's not a white thing. It's not a black thing. It is a South African thing.
Yep.
But what we've got to say to each other, if we're going to take this thing serious, we've got to shut the border. Now people say, oh, there he goes. Told you he's the South African Trump. Yes. Build the wall and drain the bloody swamp. I would love to, but they stole the bloody money of the BRICS for the wall, and they forgot where the bloody swamp is. So we've got to tighten up our security, make it a zero policy tolerance of anybody coming into this republic that's not documented author. I don't care. Number two, make sure that when we tackle crime, and I must tell you, I will tell you this, I have faith in Mchunu. I really have. I have faith in the new Minister of Police because he isn't a person that rabbled like the previous idiot in a hat. He is calm, he's quiet, he's diplomatic, he just gets on with it. So there's hope that that person can start making South Africa a safer place. But again, Chris, it comes back to one thing: money.
Yeah, you got to resource the Justice Department. You got to punish the transgressors. You got to resource the police. They can't have one vehicle that works and unable to respond. You've got to give them the resource. You got to give them the training. You got to have forensics. You got to pay for the evidentiary process of processing DNA and evidence. And if you don't have that, then you have no deterrence. You have no way to prosecute, and crime runs rampant. And then you have people.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
We cannot continue to work in silos, in separate institutions and organizations. We've got to unite, Chris.
Yep.
You know, there's probably 1,980 Afrikaner organizations who are all saying they are talking on behalf of the Afrikaner. Now, that is typical. Sorry, jy gaan my nou weer uitkak en sê ek is 'n vark. I don't care. I'm part of you. I know you. I'm part of you. We will go to the moon with 10 Afrikaners, and by 9th day, we would have 12 churches, 14 political parties, and 4 rugby clubs. We just can't get on. We've got to moor each other. We've got to listen, dude. Suidlander, Binnenlander, Oplander, Westlander. It matters not who you are. It matters that if we don't unite in this country, not just as Afrikaners, but as South Africans, Chris, against crime, against looting, against corruption, we are never going to win this battle. Unity in this country is damn well difficult because we are a country that is divided. And by the way, our slogan, Chris, Tri Karateka, that is the national emblem slogan of the Republic. And what does Tri Karateka mean? It is Khoisan, and it means unity in diversity, eenheid in diversiteit. Nothing describes that better. We are a diverse country, but we need to unify. I think the closest to unity we have ever got in this country is the 90 World Cup, and that was a huge unifier, but it lasted a month.
Yeah, the 2019 victory lasted 2 weeks, and the 2023 victory lasted a week. The Springboks can't keep trying to save South Africa because the attention span gets shorter every time. When we win it again in 2027, it'll probably be for 3 days, and then it'll all be over.
Well, Chris, I wrote an article in Independent Media that was well published, and I said South Africa needs a World Cup every day.
Yeah.
Because it then seems that we forget about color, we forget about race, we stand together as our South African, and if an all-black dingaling threatens a black or white Springbok supporter, they'll get on their move, because then Sipho and Jan and Frikkie and Zay, we are together. Now, if we can build that continual momentum, where this country gets up and say, like we did when we kicked out Jacob Zuma, when we got up and we said we are not going to stand for certain atrocities, we united, Chris. And I call that to every South African. Sit nou die verlede agter jou, man. You know, put the past behind you. It's not going to help you. It's not going to build a future. And that is the promise of hope, Chris, is that we, people like me, and yes, people like you, that's passionate about this country, will not stop, will not be silenced, and will continue to dream about a truly free South Africa.
Well, Neil, I know your role with the Junior Springboks, and I have some bad news for you, my friend. The bad news is that the refugee resettlement program goes into effect, and if a significant number of Afrikaners, we don't know that will be significant, we are going to have a world-class rugby team for the
The Junior Eagles.
Yeah, we're going to have a world-class rugby team 2031.
Yeah,
Yep, exactly.
and the whole team will be called Van der Merwe, the Toy van Rensburg, and they are all with an American accent. I can see that nightmare.
I can see ginger-haired Kitsofts playing prop in 20 years for the United States as we win World Cups.
Well, I'll fight it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to agree you on that one, my brother.
Look, we've already been trading South Africa to rugby players for 10 years. That's the only reason we've been remotely competitive in some of these games, to be honest. But, all right, Neil, we probably should wrap up. You've got some things to do, and I'm going to give you the floor as I always do, and then I'll let you drop off, and I got to go through and address the super chats that people put in here and just give it a final comment. But, by the way, Neil, I don't know if you know this, but my neighbor, well, a friend of mine, he's 86 years old, really good guy, called me up a couple days ago and said, hey, listen, Chris, I don't know if you find this interesting, but do you think you'd want to do a broadcast on this? The day after President Kennedy was shot, I bought the same rifle from the same sporting goods store, and I have it still. I've had it since 1963. Do you think people would be interested in hearing about that rifle and seeing it? I'm like, I don't care about the Kennedy assassination, but I know a lot of people do. So I said, yeah. So I haven't decided whether it's going to be live or it's going to be recorded. I think I'm going to record it. That way I can, edit it and move in closer and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to see him today or tomorrow, and we're going to go talk about this. And I think it'll be fascinating. I don't know if you're interested, but now I'm actually interested because he's got the rifle. By the way, he said that they've only fired it one time. He gave it to a friend. They went out to the range, and the guy couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't hit it with that rifle. That might just mean the guy's a terrible marksman, but maybe it's a rifle. I don't know. But he got the same rifle with the same scope the day after from Klein's Sporting Goods out of Chicago. He ordered it and got it delivered. By the way, that rifle with the scope cost $19.99 in 1963. I don't know if that's of any interest to you.
Than a burger.
All right, I'll give you the floor if you want to wrap it up here and give us maybe some hopeful thoughts, or maybe not gloom and doom. The floor is yours, Neil.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I must tell you, Lee Harvey Oswald and the magic bullet is an incredible sniper. Let me quickly tell you that. We've not had a better shot since then. Chris, I'll wind up by saying that we are in an era in this country where we have never needed more hope, prayer, and unity as a country before. We all come from a past. We all agree that we come a long road to the end. The final destruction of the unity in this country will be to surrender to people whose ulterior motives is to eat more, loot more, steal more, and destroy more. We have a dark cloud in what I call the biggest draconian enemy to face us in the past 3 decades, and that is MK. and the way that they are moving on. If that is the alternative to democracy in this country, we are in trouble. And we will probably need all the friends internationally that we can at this moment in time. No, it's not just doom and gloom. No, it is not just darkness that faces us. We are a country that can unite. We are a country that if we do unite, we are unstoppable in one union. We cannot break this country apart. I don't want exits and Brexits and exits. I want my country to be my country. The day I have to apply for a bloody passport to go from Cape Town to Bloemfontein is the day that I will recognize we have surrendered this country. So in conclusion, Chris, there's hope. Hope lies in me. Hope lies in you and many other South Africans that are not interested in radicalism in this country, that want to stay the course, that want to stay in the middle, and want to see our grandchildren grow up in this most beautiful country of sunshine, Coca-Cola, Chevrolet. I don't know if you know that, but in the olden days, that was a slogan where we said Coca-Cola, Chevrolet, Braai, and our country was known for that. So I want to say to South Africans, and a message to all the H2A South African farmers, young men and old, that are currently in America. You are there not because you want to be there. You are there because you have to be there to put food on the table. Anybody that calls you a disgrace, anybody that at any point questions your patriotism should look at their own heart first. And we have many there that are still supporting us in many countries across the world, Chris. So we want to send a message to them and say, don't give up on us. We are a country that, if necessary, will rise again. We've done it once, and we will do so again. Amen.
Great words, Neil. Listen, at the risk of irritating my viewers from the Free State, look, I appreciate that you don't want to have a passport to go from the Cape to Bloemfontein, but I think your first mistake was your desire to go to Bloemfontein. What's that all about?
Let me tell you, in Afrikaans, they say, daar's net een stad, en dit is die Vrystaat. So,
yes, I know, Vrystaat, always, yeah. No, just having a good time there. Anyway, so, but no offense to Bloemfontein, folks. I've been there. Relax. I'm just having a little crack there. I go. Neil de Beer, leader of the UIM, member of the Cape Town City Council. Thank you for your time, sir. And if I ever get back to South Africa, we'll have to sit down and have another coffee, okay?
Well, Chris, your beard's a bit shorter, so you've got more room for the brandy to fit to your mouth, and I've got no more hair. So we will be absolutely noticeable.
Well, I've got less space for the soup to get caught in my beard now.
Yeah, and you and I face apparently the same. You know, we've increased our protection, we've increased our understanding that we are not all liked in this country, but who the hell cares? Kom ons dom hulle, and we do it together, Chris.
All right, Neil, thank you. Bye-bye, Donkey. It's always a pleasure. Have a good day. Go well, and a good recovery. I hope you're the new look is not bad. Not bad. All right, folks.
Cheers, Chris, and to the listeners.
Neil de Beer. All right, folks, let him drop off. I'm going to get the super chats and deal with those. Okay, so Neil's a pro, so I don't have to help him get out. He knows how to get out of there. Because I know there were super chats, and I wasn't avoiding them, folks, but I had to deal with the conversation. So, okay, so Helena Geldenhuis became a member. Helena, that's a salute for you. Anthony Meyer, or Mayer, salute for you. And then Francois Velgemont, thank you as well. Then Walk Hill gave 140 Rand super chat. Thank you for that. DA using Cape exit referendum as a bargaining chip is the only hope for South Africa. It's the only play. If the DA does not play the only card we have, it's game over. Interesting thoughts there. Thank you for the 140 Rand on that. It's your first super chat too. Luna225 gave a 40 Rand super chat saying, at last, someone I can listen to and understand. You can't listen to me and understand me? Michelle, I can't read the rest of it. It looks like it says cost or something like that. Neil, go. We will raise the funds for you. Go. and tell the truth as you always do. You have more support than you know. So that's 100 Rand from Michelle. Thank you for that, Michelle. And then we had 5th super chat, by the way. And then Kai ZA became 10 cent bribe rookies with your anniversary super chat. Thank you for that, Kai. Francois says a Sendef signal jammer was recovered from one scene. Yeah, 14 Rand. Thank you for that. Bo Smith gave 35. Says great chat, Chris. Speedy recovery to Neil. 35 Rand. 5th super chat. And then we've got Ulandi Janssen gave 100 Rand super sticker. Thank you, Ulandi. Appreciate that, guys. Very kind of you to offer those things up. So my apologies for just getting to them now, but when we do interviews like this, it's oftentimes difficult to bring that into the chat. So I hope you found this interesting, maybe compelling. Let me take this off. These earpieces are kind of distracting. Get that out. I no longer need that because I'm not doing the interview. Anyway, so thanks a lot for being here, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. On Sunday on the program, Neil Diamond from the South African Chamber of Commerce USA will be on the program. We'll be talking about his recent trip to South Africa to the American Embassy to deliver that list of 67,042 names of people who have an interest in the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program. Now, that is just the people that contacted them. That doesn't include the people who are contacting the Amerikaners or people who've contacted the embassy directly. So we'll talk about that on Sunday. Next week, if things go well, I'll have Ike Kumalo on the program. Also, Jeremy Nell should be on the program next week. My schedule is a little different than I originally thought. My consulting gig has moved to the 2 weeks after that. So next week I'll be available to do interviews for those who are getting in here. So China says, I'm from Bloemfontein, my hometown. All right, China, that's why I made it clear that I'm not dissing on Bloemfontein, just having a little bit of fun there. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot for being here. I do have some production to do today. SV Endless says you have to switch off the chat with Neil Diamond. I don't know. We may leave it on. We'll see. But if people misbehave, then we'll turn it off at some point. All right. Cool beans, folks. Be sure to hit the like button. It's so hard to get people to hit that like button. I don't know why. Piece of cake, folks. Hit the like button. 1,208 likes. Can we get to a lot more? That'd be really nice. Would love to hear about the rifle. Yes, Nico Brantz. So I'm going to go talk to that guy if he's available. He had to run down to the county seat to deal with something. He's also on the planning commission here. He's always been doing things involved with politics since he came to this area 60 years ago. Anyway, Luna says, love listening to you. First, I could listen to South Africa. Okay, Luna, thank you for your membership. It hasn't popped. Oh, hang on. That's why I have the alerts turned off. Hang on a second here, folks. Alert box is off. Now it's back on. So, Luna, thank you for your membership. Cool beans. All right, cool. All right, there's only one Neil Diamond. We come to America today. Yeah, the chat with Ike Kumalo should be interesting. So we're working on it. Ike and I have been in touch. He's been very busy with court cases. He is an attorney, so we're trying to make that happen. So, okay. I don't know, Kurtz, when the interview will be because we haven't agreed to it yet. So all I can tell you for sure is Neil Diamond is on Sunday. I haven't set the time for that. Jeremy Nell will be sometime next week. Ike Kumalo may take place next week. Beyond that, still working on my schedule of interviewees. All right, be sure to hit that like button. Now we're up to 12:52, so I imagine milk out another 40 there. See if we can't get some more. Prince Mashele. Send me his contact information. We'll see if we can make it happen. That's going to do it, folks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching early on the news. And I hope you all have a lovely evening, good day wherever you're at around the world. And we'll catch you next time. And we're going to leave you with Colonel Wyatt's anthem. All right? For those who haven't heard it, this is Colonel Wyatt's anthem. Hopefully you like it. Cheers. Weatherman says, thank you, Chris. Appreciate what you do and for having Neil in the chat. My pleasure. All right, here you go, guys. Cheers.
Colonel Wyatt hits the screen, got stories bold and keen. Old soldier, sharp and mean, tells truths they've never seen. Rugby lover with a roar, Africa flowing in his core. YouTube rants they can't ignore, his passion makes his heart soar. Colonel Wyatt, hear his call, shining light through it all. Trolls may rise, but he'll stand tall. Subscribe now, don't miss the brawl. Military mind, keen and wise, truths come out, no disguise. South African skies in his eyes, hear his voice, no surprise. Retired soldier with the fight, in the dark he brings the light. Angry rants, truths ignite, join the cause, join the ride.
miss the brawl. Enemies knocked on his door, trolls attack, but he's more with each click. Watch him soar on the truth waves. He explodes. Colonel Wyatt, hear his call. Shining light all. Trolls may rise, but he'll stand tall. Subscribe now, don't miss the brawl. Right now, don't miss the brawl.
Take a picture.